Hello everybody, welcome to Outside Carrow Road. We've just been in David Wagner's first press conference, first-ish press conference as Norwich City head coach. We're outside the Barclay, which is not maybe particularly visible on the tripod, but we are here. You can kind of see the brickwork and whatnot. Kind of Southwell, joined by Samuel Seaman to reflect on that chat. We're battling against the light and it's freezing cold, so we probably won't make this too long. Sam, thank you for joining me in the cold. First of all, you drew the short straw, I think, whilst the other two are inside working very hard. What did you make of that as a first press conference from David Wagner? I mean, a range of questions, but what's kind of your overall reflections?
Yeah, I think he speaks well. It's back to the days, in my view, of sort of Daniel Farke monologues and half an hour press conferences that we maybe didn't see in Dean Smith's tenure, and he's somebody who certainly likes to explain things. I'm encouraged by the level of openness that we've seen from him. Obviously, he had that sort of mini press conference after the Blackburn game yesterday, but I think he's somebody who is very willing to talk about his footballing ideas and probably bring people along, and that's something we've been calling on the football club generally to do for a long time. So I think Norwich fans will be really pleased with somebody who can be open and can be honest and answer questions in the most open and transparent way possible, because I think Dean Smith, as much as he was always fine to deal with, didn't necessarily like giving away too much. So I'm encouraged to see this level of communication back at the football club. I'm sure there's other things to talk about, and the fact that Stuart Webber was there was obviously another big topic that we'll probably talk about. But yeah, generally my feeling is it was a positive start and a good sign.
Hopefully you can hear us. It's a little bit ad hoc, as you can tell, and we're not going to make it too long. We're going to perhaps go in a bit more detail. We're going to sit down and record a podcast tomorrow, but we wanted to do a little bit of something instant, and with that comes rough and ready. And yes, I know we would make a very good strike partnership. I'll let the people watching decide who should be who. And of course, if you watch the press conference, get your comments in, or you've seen snippets, get your thoughts in terms of what you thought about it and what you felt of David Wagner's first official words. If we're using that, it feels a bit weird given he did a press conference after the game yesterday, but it was billed his first press conference, so we'll use that, and hopefully you can run along with it with us. You mentioned David Wagner. Stuart Webber was also there. That was interesting. He's not been someone who has been as visible, and of course he set a very high benchmark for himself compared to perhaps the early years at the club, where you mentioned Daniel Farke was in charge. The message was communicated so well. It does feel like a gear change in the last couple of weeks in terms of the communication and the messaging around purely what's happening on the pitch at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when obviously Webber spoke to, I think it was Sky Sports before whatever game was
Watford,
there you go. Before Watford, there was a sense that they had admitted they perhaps hadn't got things particularly right when Dean Smith was in charge, and there was an admittance that probably fans did need to be brought along a little bit more on the journey. So it's encouraging to see them sort of accept that. I don't think we've seen too many admittances of culpability and responsibility in recent months. In fact, even in today's press conference, I think Stuart Webber was reticent to admit that it's been a difficult 18 months for Norwich City. So it is the rarest of things at the moment, but it's positive to see that the club are opening themselves up a little bit more to try and communicate with fans a lot more. Today they've got 45 minutes of explanation as to where the club's going in the future and why they are where they are, and that's something that I think they've been crying out for, and something they were crying out for throughout Dean Smith's tenure. So I think that will bring a lot of positivity, and there's been calls. It's sort of been a bit of a chicken and egg debate. Fans have been saying give us something to cheer on. Some at the club, when they've been doing interviews and things, have been calling on the fans to get behind the team. There were more of those calls today, but I feel like it's getting to a place where slowly sort of bridges are being built, and fans and club are hopefully getting closer back together, because at the end of the day, footballing achievement is what underpins every football fan's experience, as well as entertainment. And I think if fans are behind the team, they're more likely to play well, and I think everybody at this football club is starting to realise that, and that's probably part of why Dean Smith lost his job, and also probably a big part of why they've now got a new head coach who's very good from the early signs at communicating and very open. So I'm really encouraged by it. As journalists, it means we might have a little bit more trimming to do when it comes down to the old transcribing, but yeah, I think everybody will be pleased with that, and fans will be delighted that they've probably now started an era where they get a lot more explanation as to what's going on.
conditions weren't hard enough. The wind has now come in from what's that, west? I think as we stand. I don't know. I haven't got a compass. I don't know why I've gone down that track because I've no idea. But there we go. Such is life. It is that aspect of it is really interesting. There's also a clear shift in terms of trying to message what they want to do on the football pitch as well, which has been severely lacking. I think everyone kind of knew what David Wagner would bring in terms of that Klopp-like heavy metal, full throttle, however you want to describe it, football where there is an aggression, intensity, and in that regards it is quite easy to relate to for supporters because the intensity is there, the aggression is there, and also it's pretty exciting to watch when it's in full flow.
Yeah, and that's something he spoke about today. I think, to paraphrase, he said, we know that people at this football club and fans expect and enjoy energetic attacking football, and that's what we're going to bring. So, it's two different tasks, saying it and producing it. If every coach could say we want to produce successful, energetic attacking football, then every coach would have done it already, and Dean Smith probably would have done it before he departed. So it's definitely a task that Wagner's going to have to now undertake, and a big one given probably how the squad's moved away from that style of football in the last year or so. And I think it's going to take a few steps to recover that, but how many of the discussions we've had in the last few months have been, even when things are going well, about style of football and entertainment and how important that is to fans. And Norwich are in a league which they're used to being successful in, they expect to win, and when those results perhaps aren't coming your way, the only thing you have to save you is that entertaining football. So with a difficult task on his hands, I think Wagner's probably bought himself some time by saying that entertaining football will be the priority, and a style of football that's identifiable will be the priority. And hopefully it brings a bit of pride back to the fans as well, because I think fans enjoy being able to point at their team and say, this is what I expect to see when I turn up to the ground, and they like having sort of other pundits and fans of other clubs recognise them for that. So hopefully it brings a bit more identity back to the club and a little bit more for fans to get involved in. I think it will. Now it's just a task of actually delivering on it, because as I said, it's easy to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. A few more points and then we'll leave it. Like I said, we're going to sit down and record a podcast tomorrow where we'll give our thoughts in longer form and have a bit more of a free-form discussion. We just want to do a very, very short bit of reaction, and then as in the freezing cold, that's the fourth time I think I mentioned it, so hopefully people are beginning to feel sorry for us. The January transfer window, I think that naturally at this time of year, and it's been maybe kind of a little bit subdued because of what we've seen in terms of the shift in head coach and the change in head coach. So that's where a lot of the focus has been. I would expect that in the coming weeks, and we've kind of seen it with the Todd Cantwell Rangers links, that it's beginning to bubble up again. Yeah. What did you make of Stuart's comments around the transfer window and maybe Norwich City's activity or lack of activity in it? I mean, it's traditionally not a window that he particularly likes to operate.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to come out and say they were going to make 5 or 6 signings, but I probably was expecting more to happen now. You see the likes of sort of Saxon Early being moved on, and I think somebody's referenced in the comments Todd Cantwell being linked with a move to Rangers, as we said. And it felt like they were maybe trying to move things around to do, if not huge amounts of business, at least some limited business. But the noises from Webber today were basically not to expect anything, and that anything is a bonus. He said they looked at left back, but with Dimitris Giannoulis and Sam McCallum coming back, and 2 players that probably suit David Wagner's system quite well as well, it doesn't look like they're going to end up doing much, which probably will be frustrating for a lot of fans, especially those at the Blackburn game, in which I felt Wagner probably came out looking good and the players came out looking quite a lot worse than they did before. So those reinforcements aren't going to come, and that's basically what Stuart Webber admitted today. So I was surprised with how unequivocal he was. I thought there might be a little bit more openness in case they can try and sort a couple of things out. But I don't think any of us were ever expecting huge changes. It's just a case of whether this squad can get them out of the Championship, because on paper, and we've looked a number of times at the team sheets before games and said how much better does this Norwich squad look than the squad they're facing, and often they've lost those games. So they should be able to get more out of this group than they have, but I think Norwich fans will be disappointed that they're not going to see any new players in the door, unfortunately. Or
Yeah.
not any. Sorry, I've said none. I don't want to rule out any business.
Well, I was going to say I can still see them doing a winger, if I'm honest, if possible. We'll see how that transpires. Obviously, I think it may well depend on who and how many they could get out of the door, which is why the Cantwell speculation at the minute is particularly interesting. And I would say that there is definitely interest from Rangers in him. So we'll see how that develops over the coming days. He could theoretically, to answer a question that we've had, he could technically sign a pre-contractual agreement with Rangers or any club outside of England as of the 1st of January. So that could... those discussions could already have been had. Obviously, I think Norwich would prefer, with 6 months or so left on his deal, to get a little bit of cash for him if humanly possible as well. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks. Stuart Webber as well, unequivocal that Milo Rashica could not be called back from his loan at Galatasaray, which I think we probably expected was the case. The reports in Turkey have been very much that they would like to keep him on a permanent basis. So again, we'll see how that goes. I mean, on Stuart Webber, there's been a lot of focus on him. There was a small chance and a very slim minority, so it's worth saying that. And I only raised this because it was mentioned today, rather than anything else, really. But he was asked about the criticism that he's faced in recent months and recent weeks, and his response was probably, as you'd expect, and as we've come to expect from Stuart Webber, pretty bullish.
Yeah, it was basically ignore the noise all over again. He said he doesn't read what people write, he doesn't consume anything, he's not on social media, so he's clearly suggesting that he's not affected by any of that criticism. And he actually said if it was down to him, he'd take it all instead of players, because as I can quote, he can't come onto the pitch and score a winner. And I thought that was a fairly valid.
That's why I need to get us up, right now.
Yeah, I think
we'd score a winner.
Although you can't head a ball, can you? That's what I've heard.
I can't head it, but can you head it?
Well, I think I can, given...
Well, there you go, then.
If I don't have to jump above anybody.
Well, we squared that off, then. It's fine.
There you go. Right,
it's fine.
Sorted.
You flick it on and then we'll be fine.
There's your January transfer business. No, I think he was... he sort of suggested, as we've become used to, that he's not interested in that sort of criticism, and he felt that it perhaps does actually affect players. And we saw a lot of criticism for fans, to be honest, when a lot of it came from Dean Smith, to be fair. There's been a lot of reference to booze and how that's impacted players' performance in recent games. So I'm not particularly surprised to hear Stuart Webber say that. But as he said, he doesn't really do things by halves, and it was quite bullish. The message is to carried on in terms of ignore the noise. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, interesting that he's sort of put himself on the line there and said that he's happy to take that blame rather than the players who are trusted to perform. Yeah,
absolutely. A few more kind of headline points. David Wagner, he said throughout, and let's be honest, he wouldn't say differently even if it was the case, but he made clear that David Wagner was the first choice. There was a lot of talk, of course, about him instantly slotting in and how Stuart Webber feels that that's going to be a positive for the situation that Norwich are in. And just finally, because the light's drained away and so is my phone battery, so we don't want to completely lose you before officially saying goodbye. There was also talk from David Wagner around fitness, and I think there's been a lot of focus on that, given the style of football that he wants to play and the relentlessness of the Championship schedule. It was an interesting anecdote, sort of away from the question he got asked about Onel Hernandez, and how he said he was pretty good for 55 minutes, but perhaps didn't have the fitness to maintain that over 90. I mean, it's kind of, you hear it a lot when a new head coach or manager arrives at a football club. It's kind of an easy win that the players need to get fitter, but it does feel particularly pertinent with the style of football that he's trying to implement.
Yeah, and it's something I've seen actually all over social media highlighted after that game against Blackburn, that Norwich fans clearly aren't happy with the levels of fitness. And you look at the late goals they conceded. I think they conceded late goals in 3 games in a row prior to that Blackburn game. And as you say, he's somebody whose philosophy is rooted in pressing and running around and heavy metal football. And I think it's interesting that Kenny McLean actually came out of that Blackburn game as one of the most impressive players, and I think those players who are capable of that athleticism and getting up and down probably will thrive under David Wagner. But a concern for me is the fact that, as he highlighted today, the Championship games come thick and fast, and he's got a squad that probably doesn't look particularly fit at the moment. Didn't look particularly fit at any point during Dean Smith's reign, to be honest, and quite how he gets that running into the legs while maintaining a squad that can...
It's tough mid-season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough mid-season, because you've got to get that fitness up long term, but also have enough energy in the legs to comfortably compete in a league in which they need to be winning most
It's
games.
Saturday, Tuesday as well,
Exactly.
and the shortness of the recovery time. It feels like a big ask at this stage of the season.
Exactly, and I think that's part of the reason why these issues are probably part of the reason why Stuart Webber said you can't say Wagner must get this side promoted this season, because as much as I think that'll be a big bonus, it's probably a mid to longer term project as well, and it's going to be interesting to see how Wagner can sort of balance those elements.
It absolutely is. Plenty more coverage. We'll of course have the full press conference available for you to watch later this evening. It's being edited and worked up now, so hopefully that will be on our YouTube channel and across our channel shortly. There's of course all the quotes pieces, analysis pieces, reaction pieces, podcasts to come in the coming hours and days as well, so make sure you keep it locked to our channels. Download the Pink and Plus app, of course, if you're yet to do so. You can take a free trial out and see if you like it or not. I think that's all of the plugs that we need to make. So as we lose light here at Carrow Road, that was David Wagner's first official press conference as Norwich City head coach. The Wagner and Webber era is well and truly underway. I get the sense it's not going to be dull. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.